Welcome back to a new series. I'm very happy to announce 5 more videos in this attacking style of chess, my favourite way of playing. We all enjoy a lovely victory, don't we? We should do anyway. And what this mini-series of 5 videos is going to take a look at is mainly king hunts. We want to chase our opponent's king down, checkmate our opponent's king, and win the game. So I'm going to show you how this is going to be made possible, what we should be looking at when trying to attack, so you're going to get some hints with these videos. And also, I do want you to just enjoy the beauty of some of these king hunts that I'm going to take you through, because we play chess, I think, for 2 reasons. Number 1, to enjoy the game, and number 2, to get better. And I'm going to try to combine those 2 things in this video series. Now, to start off with, in the first video, we're going to look at a game played quite recently, actually in 2015, in the European team competitions between Nyadic, a very strong player who now lives in Azerbaijan, and Esin, a Grandmaster from Turkey. And this is not necessarily a king hunt, but I think it's a very good introduction to the series. Because what we see Nyadic do with the white pieces is build up a lovely attacking position through a logical, sensible moves, and then when it is time to strike, like a cobra, he goes whoosh and strikes to kill. Now, the one thing I want you guys at home to remember is if you're going to create beauty at the board, then you really have to build a good foundation first. You can't build a king hunt out of nothing. You have to play a good opening, and it's going to be the small accumulation of very positive things that allows you to create a beautiful piece of art on the chessboard. So let's dive into the action here. Now, this game started with the open Sicilian, which is where white plays the move d4 in the Sicilian. And one thing, again, I tell a lot of students of mine is, right, when you're picking an opening, the first thing you have to remember is, what is your style of play? Now, if you're an aggressive attacking player like myself, then of course you should play aggressive attacking chess and aggressive attacking openings. So make sure your openings suit your style of play. Very simple rule, but it's amazing how many people go against this rule. So Nyadic is an aggressive attacking player, and for that reason he plays the open Sicilian, this position we see here, with the pieces coming into the center, open lines, known for its attacking play. Now, if you're a more positional player, you should be playing maybe the English opening on move 1 or something a lot quieter. But we don't want to worry with that rubbish today. So let's now go through the opening quite quickly. Both sides developing, actually, in a very sensible way here. White castles, black castles, and now before you can attack in chess, like I said, you have to get all your pieces developed. First of all, white takes control of the g4 square with this little move, very handy move when you fianchettoed, stopping a black piece ever coming to this square. So as well as making your own army as good as possible, you have to frustrate your opponents. Half the battle in chess is frustrating your opponents. And little moves like h3 are moves that you should not forget to play. So black continues developing, white gets his last piece out, black gets his last piece out, and now a very clever idea here. Who has the more space in this position? Well, it is white. White has more space. I think you should be able to see this because he's further advanced in the board. He has got a pawn on the 4th rank. Black only has a pawn on the 3rd rank from black's point of view. White has more space to maneuver. Now, a golden rule, when you have more space, you should try to avoid exchanging pieces. So white's next move, maneuvering his knight from the center back to e2, is a golden example of that. Avoiding exchange of knights. Now, why should you avoid exchanging pieces with more space? Very logical. You have more space to put your pieces on, and if your opponent is cramped, his pieces will try to fight for the control of the same squares. So a little positional rule there. If you have more space, try to avoid exchanging pieces. So black now tries to take the half-open file, and now white, because he's finished his development, tries to come up with a concrete plan. Knight into the center of the board. And here I think black makes quite a big error. But it's quite a difficult position anyway, because one idea for white is try to come into the square on b6, and this knight is very strong. Okay, black decides to exchange the knight off. And now his knight is very badly placed. It has to go back to b8. So by playing very natural moves, white has again increased his advantage. The knight on b8, white has made bad. By moving his pawn to d5, he has opened up a half-open e-file. Try to always think when you have a positional transformation, like we have here, of the pawn moving to a different square, so the structure of the position has changed. Every time the structure changes, you must think, right, how has this changed what I'm aiming to do? And now, white has this open e-file, so this is where you should put your rooks as white. So any transformation, think about where you should put your pieces. The game now continues with the white knight coming to a very strong square in the center of the board. Black trying now to get his knight to a6. White going queen d2. And here white has ideas of bishop h6 and simply connecting the rooks. Very simple play. Rook to e8 from black. We mentioned the half-open e-file, so that's what white does. He puts his rooks on the half-open e-file. Always put your pieces on the best squares. Attacks do not happen from thin air. Black aims to create counterplay on the queen side. White brings his last piece into the game. And now, where is the weak point in black's position? It should be easy to see that it's the e7 pawn. How do we attack that pawn? Bishop to g5, aiming all our pieces at e7. Black tries to start counterplay against the knight on d4. White defends the knight, and here, pawn to e5. Black gets a little bit desperate. And we can see, basically, now white has built up his position. He's moved all his pieces to good squares, so a logical build-up. He can now think about putting his attack into motion. So how would you play this position? Well, you don't want to move the knight. You need to open up the position, especially now as your rooks could become bad if you don't capture en passant. Taking en passant is the correct way to play. Black recaptures, and now knight takes e6. Time to move in for the kill. Black now was counting on taking on c3, creating a counterattack. Now let me just give you a chance to have a think what you would play with the white pieces here. So is white to play in this position? How do you play this position? All of your pieces aggressively placed. Look at black's king. Another tip for when starting attack, you can't really start an attack against a well-defended opponent's king. But here, black has lost his f-pawn, meaning that he's going to be weak on this diagonal, the a2, g8 diagonal. So this is certainly a diagonal you need to consider attacking on. You also have a very strong control of the e-file, a nice knight on the e6, and potentially attacking bishops. So, what do you think is the correct move to play here? Time to think aggressive. You have the positional build-up, now you need to change gears and go into hacking mode. Queen to d5, an excellent move. Creating some threats against the black king and moving another piece into the attack, the biggest piece of them all, the queen. Now, there is a nasty threat of the knight moving with a discovered check. So black now played knight into b4, attacking the queen on d5. But let's think logically. All of your pieces, as white, have gained good squares. Now, when you are attacking, if you have to retreat, you lose a lot of the momentum. And we haven't moved our queen to d5 just to move it back again. That would be ridiculous. We can't go backwards. We need to keep attacking. So I'm going to give you a couple of seconds here to think about what white should play to keep the initiative going. How can you keep the attack going? And there's a stunning move here that completely destroys black's defensives and creates a winning attack. So if you need to have a bit more time, I suggest you pause this video now to find the winning move. Well, the winning idea, we cannot retreat our queen, as mentioned, because this would give black time to start his own attack on the queen side. When we have the initiative, we need to play with power, with energy. We need to play with force. No retreat, no surrender. And here the move knight to d8 check, this unbelievable queen sacrifice, suddenly makes our pieces work in a harmonious, even musical way. Our rook's unleashed on the e-file. We give up our queen, yes, but our bishop can fly in. Our knight on d8 breaks the coordination between black's rooks on c8 and e8. The knight also has ideas of coming to f7. And I now suggest, if you haven't seen the end to this, I'm going to try to give you some little tests as we go along, that you should now try to calculate the end, where checkmate is, where it comes from. It is tricky, but one of the best ways to improve as a chess player is to improve your tactics. Now here, the process of elimination is key. What that means is every Grandmaster uses this technique. Start with one move of black's. So for example, I'm not going to show you the move yet. Start when knight takes d5. Concentrate that move and look at one variation at a time. Try to calculate as far as you can. Make an assessment. If you solved it from the white perspective, if you found a good way to play and you found a win, move on to the next possibility, maybe the king moves, and do each one by one until you've worked out the solution. So I suggest you pause the video now. Okay, well, let's use the process of elimination to go through black's possibilities. Now, I'm going to start with black moving the king on g8, which is not a very good idea because, of course, he should take the queen. Let's start with king to h8. What do we do here? Well, now we have the beautiful smothered mate checkmate. And that is knight to f7 check. Black has to go king to g8. Knight to h6 check. If black goes to f8, we have queen to f7 checkmate. So the black king has to go to h8, and hopefully you all know how to checkmate black in this position. A very typical and beautiful idea. Queen to g8 check. Oh yeah, imagine playing that move in a game. You'd be shaking with excitement. You'd be so happy you'd want to run around the tournament hall shouting, oh yeah. And the idea is, black has to go rook takes g8, and now knight to f7, the so-called smothered mate checkmate. So let's imagine if I'm in a game situation, before I play the move knight to d8, I would calculate these lines. And the first line I'd look at is obviously king to h8. But now I know that is a win. I would look at king to f8. Very easy to see that queen to f7 is winning here. What other moves does black have? Well, really, the only other logical move is knight takes queen. And now you have two possibilities as white. Bishop takes knight or rook takes e8. And what I'm trying to do in this video is go through a Grandmaster's calculation skills and try to get you thinking like a Grandmaster as well as looking at a beautiful game. So if you weren't able to work it out before, now please again, think which move you'd play. Bishop takes d5 or rook takes e8. One of these draws and one of these wins. So again, calculate as deeply as you can. Take your time. Think as much as you can. Very complicated position. I have to say, I struggled. I'm a Grandmaster. But we're going to go through the process, see how you get on. Pause the video now. Now, in actual fact, the correct move is rook takes e8 check. We'll see why in a second. Now, bishop takes d5 check is not as good because black can block with a bishop on e6. Now again, incredibly complex position, but after the sequence, something like rook takes e6, bishop takes e6, black can try to survive a king f8. Now don't worry if you can't see this all. I don't blame you, it's incredibly hard. I struggle to see this, but if you're, when calculating a position in a game and you're finding it very hard to calculate, try to find a simpler way of doing it. So don't look at bishop takes d5. It gets too complicated. Just eliminate that from your calculation and go for the other option. And that other option is, of course, rook takes e8 check. And then concentrate on this move. And it should be clear to see now that this is winning. Well, maybe not clear quite yet. Let's look at the moves. Now, if bishop to f8, there is a checkmate. This was actually played in the game. So, first of all, what happens if bishop takes rook? What do you play now? Well, the correct way to play is to now go bishop takes d5 check. And the difference between this and the last variation is black cannot put a piece on e6. And what can he play? Well, it's going to be checkmate. Because, for example, king f8, can you see the checkmate in one move here? Pause if you need to. Bishop to e7, a lovely double bishop checkmate. Now, what about king to h8? Can you see the checkmate here? It's checkmate in two moves. Pause again if you need to. Rook takes e8 check. Black only has one move, bishop to f8. And again, it's a double bishop checkmate. Can you see it? Bishop to f6, checkmate. This is the correct way to play. So let's go back now. And what about after bishop takes? Okay, bishop takes d5. Let's have a look at some variations here. And again, I recommend that you keep pausing if you're struggling to work this out. And again, think, well, what are you going to do in this situation? So here, after the move bishop to f7, how can you checkmate here? So pause the video if you need to. Look at all the checks, all the forcing moves first. Well, the correct way to play is bishop takes f7 check, king to h8, and now we see the same checkmate. Rook to e8 check, bishop f8, double checkmate with the bishops. So there's only one last line to look at in this very complicated variation. I'm sorry if I'm losing you here. We're starting off tricky in this series. I'll give you little tips of how you calculate. I'll go over the key points at the end, but it's a beautiful checkmate. Now, what happened in the game? Well, after this one, bishop to f8 was actually the move played. The game now continued. Bishop to d5 check, king to g7, and one last little puzzle for you guys. White to play and to checkmate in two moves. Now, I'll tell you a little story about this position. I was analysing this in live commentary with my co-host just recently, and we looked at this position, and I'll be honest, I could not find the checkmate for white. I'm a Grandmaster, and I couldn't find it. Very, very embarrassing. And actually, someone pointed out the checkmate, and I was so embarrassed I did not see the checkmate. Now, if you're trying to find it, look for all checks, all forcing moves. You have so many pieces attacking all of your pieces as white. There just must be a checkmate. So have a good think about how to checkmate here. Pause the video now if you need to. Well, the checkmate is the beautiful last piece comes into the game. Rook on 1, e7. Black only has one move. Bishop takes rook. And it's checkmate now. Can you see it now? Rook to g8, checkmate. This position occurred in the game, a beautiful checkmate. So, the start of this series, I just wanted to show you that king hunts don't appear out of anywhere. What are the key things to take away from this game? Well, key thing number one, you have to play the opening and middle game sensibly, develop your pieces to natural squares and get all of your army taking place in the game. And that's precisely what white did here. We can see earlier on, he played very normally if we jump back. And he got all of his pieces connected in the game. Look at this position. And now he brought his last pieces into the game, the rooks. And only now did he start attacking. So rule number one, develop all your pieces harmoniously. Rule number two, when you see an opportunity, as white did here, black has just played e5. If you see an opportunity to an attack, think, are my pieces on good enough squares? Is my opponent's king weak enough to make the attack work? Yes, it is. We can open up his king and create a beautiful attack because every white piece is attacking. You need to have normally at least 3 pieces attacking to create a checkmate. And then when it gets to the critical situation here, always look at the most aggressive forward moves, and calculation then is key. For example, in this position, you'd have to go into what we call the tank, have a long think, and calculate every check. And then hopefully, when you've trained your calculation skills, you would see that knight to d8 leads to checkmate. And let me tell you, when you see a move like this in a game, and when you're able to calculate like this, you will enjoy chess so much more. Because chess becomes this beautiful thing that you're able to work out. But you can't do this without training your skills. You have to train up your calculation. You have to train up the building up of positions, and then you can create a beautiful piece of art like this on the board. Now, in the next video, we will take a look at an old romantic king hunt, a bit more light-hearted, but this, I just wanted to give you some tips on how to create an attack. But the next video is going to be romantic, it's going to be old-fashioned, and it's going to be beautiful. So please, look at that video. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please leave your comments below. I'll be back with more stuff very soon.